Welcome back, my brave and beautiful humans, to another episode of Soul Hygiene. I have the lovely Miss Astrid here with me today. She's my new friend, and I'm super excited to have met her and gotten to talk to her. Such a beautiful soul and spirit. So I can't wait for you guys to just listen to her and what she has to offer. If you can't tell behind her, if you're looking at us on YouTube, you can see behind her where she has the words permission to sparkle. I love that title. That is the title of her book, and she'll tell you where you can find it and buy it. But I'm just really excited to share her and her inspiration and, her vision for wanting the world to sparkle. So I'm going to let her explain a little bit about herself and, what she's trying to accomplish. So welcome, Miss Astrid, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss DJ. I'm super honored to be here, and I love what you're doing with your show to inspire people to feel more happy and healthy, right? You're doing all those
Yes,
things with your soul hygiene
yes.
inspiration. So, my inspiration with Permission to Sparkle and with the book is a very similar thing. It's a different metaphor. So, my metaphor is that if we give ourselves permission to sparkle inside out, our life can become more and more magical. And we can apply that on any life area, whether it's health, whether it's love life, finances, anything. And that's literally the quest of my book. It's a journey into making your life more sparkling, and you get to pick of where that currently is most relevant for you. And in the book, I did that myself. It's a half memoir, half playbook, where I was sharing on my own life journey how I started out. And I started out with making my space more sparkling at first. And then it was suddenly, I realized, oh my goodness, my love life, my marriage, I need to leave my marriage. And later on, when I got diagnosed with cancer, it ended up also being a huge guide for me to use the principles from the book to sparkle through cancer. And that's actually going to be the next title of my next book, specifically for cancer empowerment.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think that the word permission is one of those words that are not a lot of people think about.
Mhm.
So when you think about permission, like you're actually telling yourself you can,
Yes,
you're
exactly.
allowed.
Exactly.
And I know for me, I was afraid of that word for the longest time because, you get trapped in a box. And
Yep.
especially when you're going through trauma and, either emotional, physical, mental abuse, whatever it is, I always tell my listeners, you get acclimated. Like that, I guess this is all there is. And so you trap yourself in a box. Well, giving yourself permission, allowing yourself to say, hey, I can get out. I
Yep.
have the choice. I think that's a powerful word that not
Yes.
a lot of people think about. And then to add the sparkle to it, I think is just so your personality. But I love it, like taking such a powerful world and then telling people you can shine. You have it
Yeah.
within you.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. So when you think about soul hygiene and those words,
Mhm.
how would you relate that to permission to sparkle? Like how would you compare that?
So I have one of the lenses that I recently started using is look in terms of wellness for our body, mind, emotion, spirit, and soul. We're beings of many layers for wellness and happiness, right? And so I see that's a big parallel to soul hygiene because soul is an aspect of that. It has to do with our happiness, with our um, healthy spirituality, of like living on purpose and all those things, and making joy our guide is like how I word it again, right? It's uh all of those things either guide us off the sparkle path or on the sparkle path. So we can have like an unhealthy mindset and not believe in ourselves, or like you say, put ourselves in a box and then we fall off the sparkle path and we're just like sitting there and like, and are not happy, right? Because we think we can't do anything. But the term permission to sparkle is actually a really cool um simple tool to simply remember that title, and you're like, oh my gosh, am I giving myself permission to sparkle right now? It can be that question, and then you're like, oh wait a minute, what am I thinking, right? And like, am I having limiting thoughts? Am I holding myself back from doing something self-care wise or whatever? So we can run the check for ourselves if we ask that question, and then it opens everything up again. So I think it's really parallel to you, but I would love to hear from your words. Is that, how would you word that for soul hygiene? Is that resonate?
I think that you touched on quite a bit of how I would my thought process, I guess, is, quite similar. Um, when I explain soul hygiene, it has to do with every aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
Every decision we make, every path we choose to walk. Um, if your core values are not aligned with your soul, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
soul hygiene comes into play, that's where we make bad decisions. That's where we get off path. That's where we're not shining and we're not sparkling.
Yep.
So when you say permission, I think of the analogy I always give is like, we go outside, we're smelling good. We're looking good for the world.
Mm-hmm.
We comb our hair, brush our teeth, put on our smell good perfume, whatever we do. But how do our souls look? Our
Mm-hmm.
souls, so it should shine and sparkle even brighter than the outside.
Right.
And so I love when going back, I love the word permission because not a lot of people understand that sometimes we're just trapped in this facade
Mm-hmm.
of what we think we need to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And our soul is bound because we're
Yeah.
not giving it any permission, any space to really, get attached to who we truly are as a person. And
Yeah.
so giving that permission to be like, you know what? I need to look inside. I need to take that accountability, that responsibility for myself, make my own decisions. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that word permission and allowing yourself, that goes right along with the soul hygiene path, you know,
Yeah.
um, breaking free of just everything that you're bound in, for sure.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so one key in my book, the first thing that actually I give people in the book is the key of curiosity and living curiously. And that always unlocks it and unlocks ourselves when we feel we're stuck or something feels off, or when we're scared or whatever. If something does not feel light and sparkling for ourselves, if we shift into curiosity, then we're like, wait a minute, what if? Or, then we instantly snap out of the limitation. And it's the same concept as permission to sparkle, asking if we give ourselves permission to sparkle, right? Like the simple curiosity can get us back. And yeah, anyway, that can be a longer conversation, but that's a simple key that people also remember. And
Yeah.
then I love that you brought the values and things like that, because when we walk with curiosity, and introspection, right? We give ourselves permission to actually make space in our lives to have that introspection, to listen to our soul and to listen to our pure desires and to be curious, what are our pure desires? Because if we don't pause and have that space, a lot of times we just run on autopilot, right? And then we just think like, oh, but I have to do this. Everybody does this or whatever. And if you
Yeah.
don't pause, you're like, you don't notice that some desires might not even be your own, or you might be doing something just because everybody else does it,
Mhm.
or you might not think you can do something differently. Anyway, so those are the boxes that we get to discover, like you say, and then and sometimes they're simple mindset shifts or reframes. I have a lot of journaling prompts in my book too that, with curiosity, make people ask like, well, journal this, right? Like, how are you limiting yourself? What are your true values and things like that? I have that also in there. And then Yeah, sometimes it's easy shifts, right? Or just recognizing, oh my gosh, I haven't done this forever and I've been wanting to do this, right? And other times, it might take a little bit more healing work. I have situations where, old traumas might show up, or, and when I'm just describing the book, and I was on a journey of, it was close to, actually, it was when I started realizing I need to leave my marriage. I suddenly discovered a lot of healing work I was able to do. And then sometimes you go deeper with certain things and to release them. But the more we do that, and the more we step through any fears or limitations or things we can't or whatever, with a curiosity, we find healing methods, we find the right resources, we find answers. And then you get lighter and lighter and also more sparkling. So people tell me a lot of times they love my energy now. And that is because I have done soul hygiene, to use your words, right? when we when we do those things for
Yeah.
ourselves, is like teeth brushing to actually create that space that our heart and soul wants, and listening to our heart and soul and making that a part of our life as a foundation. I really learned that on my healing journey, cancer healing, like actually always ask myself, what will lead me to more joy in every step, and like making that a practice. And I literally feel it in my heart. If something doesn't feel right, I'm like, no, I am going to do this. Even though this might not be the easiest path, this is where I'm going. And then always more lightness and joy and health and all the good things come from that when we follow our heart in that way.
Yeah. I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the word permission, because I think it also, it's a very, the way that you have it spelled out, it's a very positive word. And I think that the word permission sometimes can be looked at as negative,
Ah, interesting.
but yeah, but I think when it comes to ourselves, um I was just thinking, you have to give yourself permission to forgive.
That too. Yeah.
Forgiveness is a very hard thing for a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
think that that word permission and being, I am allowed to forgive, even in the toughest of situations, right?
Yeah.
And I say permission, it can have a connotation, I guess, of negativity when it comes to what we think in our minds permission means, like, oh, my parents had to give me permission to go here. And,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
um, but we're looking at it from as adults.
Mhm.
Now we're giving ourselves permission to do these hard things. But if we give ourselves permission to do the hard things, which are positive things, just harder, we don't have to give ourselves permission after that to have joy, to have peace, because it's an automatic process that comes to you
Yes.
after you've gone through this. I'm allowed to forgive. I'm allowed to take accountability. I'm allowed to leave. I can do this, So that thought crossed my mind as you were talking, so I just wanted to get that in
Yeah,
there.
that's cool. And I love your curiosity about the meaning of words, right? Because that's the whole permission to sparkle game. It's looking at things with curiosity. So if you take the word, let's say somebody hears permission to sparkle and they're like, oh my God, I hate this word, right? So if they don't use curiosity, they can just say like, okay, I'm not going to look at this or whatever. And maybe it's not for them. And that's great. That's fine, right? Like different things resonate with
Mhm.
different people. But when we use curiosity, that person might say like, oh, that word feels really hard for me, or annoying or difficult or whatever. And then with curiosity they might discover then, oh my gosh, that's because I never got permission to stay out past 7 o'clock at night or whatever it was, right? And so then there's an old story that can be healed, or a
Yeah.
parent might be forgiven or whatever. So that's a great example. If you have any heaviness around anything, any word and stuff, usually what I end up doing is it's like anytime we get triggered, right? We can ask ourselves like, oh, what am I making this mean about me? Like where is that coming from? Right. And so that's another curiosity. And then we find those things that suddenly we can let go. And that I'm giving and bringing lightness to this whole thing. You mentioned that it can be hard, and it can be hard to do healing things like that, right? But one of my superpowers is bringing playfulness and creativity, and that's also in this book. I mean, it even looks like this, right? And like
Yeah, I love the
you have play
yeah,
prompts
I love
there,
that. Yeah.
sparkles and like creativity and those two energies, playfulness and creativity, they unlock our bravery, our resilience, and they come with curiosity, because when we play we also use curiosity, right? And say like,
Mhm.
my gosh, so I get so triggered about this. So what? So then you can take it into a playful realm, and suddenly you dare to look at things that might just feel really heavy otherwise, and it awakens your inner scientist, and you suddenly find solutions. You mold things, and you see different angles and perspectives, and and uh and that can really help us release things and find new solutions and new ways that we want to live, like even better than we could have imagined before, right? Because creativity can really turn your world upside down and give you new ideas of doing things in a way cooler way than you have before.
No, I completely agree, and that's I love that you brought that up because I thought I was a very creative person when I was younger, like, I draw and paint and, you know, do calligraphy, all this stuff creatively on paper, and then I lost it somewhere along the way through all, the abuse and stuff and feeling like, well, you know, I acclimated to it, this is what life is, I just have to live with it, and I've been 5 years on my intentional journey, and this last year, well, I lost, dexterity and sensation in my right arm and hand from the MS, but so I can't really hold a pen or pencil to draw anymore or paint, but, the awesome thing is that I still have those ideas in my head of things I want to do, and there's so many other mediums that I can choose instead of drawing and painting now. AI has an awesome tool where you can just type in what you wanna draw and it does it all for you, which is amazing. But, um, there's, plaster work and there's acrylics and there's, just all this stuff, and I would not I don't think have unlocked that creative, sensation again that I knew I used to have, had I not followed the path of giving myself permission to forgive, giving myself permission to heal, like, going through these steps of giving myself permission to grieve the loss of a life of 25 years that I didn't really have.
Yeah.
I tried to be the best mom I could. I tried to raise my kids the best I could. Though they were my joy. But going through all of that trauma for 25 years, I lost who I was. So I
Mhm.
love the word permission because in the end, unless we make that choice and give ourselves permission to heal, we won't. We will
Exactly.
stay stuck. We will
Yeah.
stay in that box. We will stay bound by chains that
Yeah.
can easily be broken if we just let down our wall a little bit, give ourselves permission to just keep going. And
Exactly.
sometimes I feel like, this is a good thing for people who are bound by that depression every single day. Give
Yeah, that's
yourself permission to get off the couch. Just those little steps, right? Just those little things. Give yourself permission to take a shower. If you have to speak those words audibly, then do it,
yeah,
you know?
permission to joy, right? Are you
Yeah.
giving it permission to joy, and then whatever it takes to get there? Yeah, yeah, those are big conversations. I love that you that you did healing work for yourself and gave yourself permission to heal, right? Because you had
Yeah.
to, that was probably one of the steps that you had to do to say like, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to carry this with me, because we always have the present moment, and what we do from here forward, we can change. And I love to capitalize can when I spell cancer, like CAN, cancer, because in every moment we can use the word can, like what can I do? That's another curiosity thing, right? And giving ourselves permission. Um, Yeah, we can do so much.
Yeah.
That's big
Yeah.
stuff. Oh, and I love that you use curiosity to find different ways of expressing your creativity. And creativity shows up also in our thinking and in becoming curious about doing things differently and solution finding, right? And I did want to
Mhm.
mention something that I just recently heard in case that is interesting for you. So you can even give yourself permission to be curious. What if you can start painting again, even with your right hand? Because our beliefs are so powerful. And I have two things for that I want to say. So one is I just met a cancer thriver lady, Hope Cassidy. She's a singer-songwriter, and she's touring Alaska at the moment, and amazing singer. And she was sharing the story that she was losing from chemotherapy. She lost she had neuropathy, and one of the healing methods that she came across was to use texture and to paint with her hands. So like with sand and like textural stuff that is like rough and you touch it. So moving that around actually awakens the nerve endings. So that might potentially be a thing that you could look into, or even just paint roughly, because sometimes I use intuitive art also, and I use it also through my healing times, which is a way of creativity where things don't have to be perfect, but it's about the expression and about allowing our emotions to flow and doing that instead of bottling up. So I've done a painting you actually see here in the background that was like really with my hands on the ground. Well, let me just get up. I might as well since I'm here. So if you look at this one, I did that
Oh,
with my hands and like a lot of paint and dirt. Like I just moved my hands intuitively and slapped some things on there and stuff. And it was such a liberating painting that actually turned out really powerful for me. Uh, I did it intuitively without thinking what was gonna come through. I just felt into, was this my magic? And I did this, and now it looks like this phoenix rising out of the ashes, right? And like, look at the sparkle that's coming out. And I actually did that before I got diagnosed with cancer. So it's like super interesting how, and there's Charlie Chaplin. It looks like a
I was gonna
magician
say
behind.
that looks like Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, that was the original painting. It was just Charlie Chaplin, and then I added the magic to it. Anyway, so we can do so many things. We can use our other hands and whatnot. So I love that you're curious about this. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that. And I love pink, so I think that's we connect very well. I'm definitely a pink and sparkly purple girly person.
And a second thing that I wanted to mention about the curiosity, during my healing journey, and even before, I got curious about some of the thought leaders that are out there about who talk about the power of our minds. And there are a lot of studies out there how our thinking affects our bodies, and how powerful our thoughts are in terms of what they can accomplish in our bodies. And so there
Right.
are a bunch of authors out there who actually use visualization techniques, who have supported their healing, like from cancer, from vertebrae healing, all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of them, and there, Dr. Bernie Siegel talks about it in his book, Love, Medicine, Miracles. So a lot of really interesting things out there. And again, that's another example of giving yourself permission to sparkle, like permission to believe that, wow, I can change my thoughts, right? And like, wow, I
Right.
wonder what will happen when I do that. And I wonder, what can I do when I do that, right? So suddenly, the more we believe in miracles or in the impossible, the more we break out of our mind boxes. Because in one way, one day I was like curious about, well, what determines a miracle, right? And in a way, it is when something happens that we didn't think was possible and we can't explain it, right? So
Yeah.
but what it really means is like we don't know everything, right? So something might be a miracle from our view when we don't know it, but then afterward we're like, oh yeah, like the power of my mind supported this, and the impossible that I thought was impossible became possible, right? So even miracles become possible when we think with curiosity and trust that things that we don't know can also happen.
No,
So,
I totally agree with you. I think as humans, I mean, they say that we use a very minute percentage of our brain. Um, and we put ourselves in boxes not believing that things are possible. I do it too. This last weekend, I was just really struggling with having so many thoughts in my brain. Um, and not knowing what to do with them, and overcrowding myself. And I had my best friend call me this morning, and they were like, let's think about this. They're just always that person that can talk to me, get me get me grounded again. And we actually talked about that this morning, about, don't limit yourself. Believe that anything is possible. I mean, I'm a walking miracle, and I will continue to be a walking miracle. I intend to continue to be. And I truly believe that, I almost died of COVID, and I lived through it, even though the doctors didn't think I would. I have
mm,
a heart condition. I have, MS, and I don't really talk a whole lot about them, but, you know, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm walking. I'm fulfilling a purpose. And so to me, that's a miracle, right?
mhm.
And that's how I feel like you and I, like, you're a miracle. You've survived breast cancer. And I'm sure quite a few other things make you a miracle. But
We all
we're
are involved when you think about
yeah, yeah. I mean,
nature.
we're just, we're though that's what inspires people, and
Mhm.
that's what this podcast is all about, just being vulnerable, telling our stories, and hopefully, inspiring someone else to be like, okay, I want to heal. I want to sparkle. I want to have joy. I want to have peace. So I I completely appreciate the sparkleness that you have, and your personality, and the smiles that you bring to people. And I love the title. Before we end, um you have a website. Can you tell everyone what your website is, how to contact you, and where they can buy your book?
Of course. So everything is on my website and it's my name. It's www. That's always so hard to say. Um, astridmueller.com. That's AstridMueller.com. And you find all kinds of things, including a sparkle world and where to get my book, and um, more things you can do to sparkle for yourself, and also things that I do to help others sparkle. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you are a coach and a speaker, and I mean, you do a lot of things. And I will tell you, she's from the beautiful Alaska. So I love that. It's my first guest from Alaska.
You. I'm
So,
actually originally from Switzerland. I don't know if I shared that with you, but I moved to
oh,
Alaska. So that was also a big jump for me to making like that was quite an adventure to actually make it to
yeah,
move from Switzerland. Anyway, I did want to say one more thing when you were
sure.
talking, saying that you were saying that people get inspired when we share that we overcome big things, right? And so that's another interesting thought concept, I think, because I think what happens for people is, right, we see like, oh my gosh, this person overcame cancer, for example, when doctors said you can't, which will be my example. So we get inspired because we overcome something, but we all overcome challenges in our lives, and we forget
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we didn't think we could do it, right? Or we think that'd be too
Right.
hard, too heavy, too difficult, too expensive, whatever the heck it is, right? And so we forget for these moments, we simply forget. And so it's important to stay inspired, but it's also important to remember that we've all already overcome all kinds of challenges. So we can always continue to overcome and to make the impossible possible. So I wanted
That
to
is
open
so
that in.
very true. And I think what you said in there, excuse me, is that people forget that they've overcome things. And I
Yeah.
think that's why they need to be inspired. They need to remember you're here. Even, I've talked to a few ladies who are in domestic violence situations. And I'm like, the one thing you've done is your kids are still going to school. They're happy, they're healthy, you're alive. It is you who has to make the choice to leave. That's up to you. No one else can make that choice for you. But just look at all the things that you've already done. You know, you sometimes people just need to be reminded that
Yep.
it's not my journey that's inspiring you. You're looking at me and saying, I'm inspired because I remember what I've overcome. And I think that's the
Right.
biggest encouragement that we can give other people, is just to inspire and encourage them to keep going, to keep
Exactly.
overcoming and to keep
Yeah.
giving themselves permission to sparkle.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you, Miss Astrid. I know we're gonna have you on the show again, just
Aw.
because we love your energy here, and I think we have a lot in common. So I can't wait till the next time that we're able to chat. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Soul Hygiene. We will see you later.